Oh, what happened? My head is killing me. Ah, I see you're awake. Oh, what happened, Gypsy? Well, you see, you're in a terrible accident. The dog came in and bumped the bookshelf and you just kinda nosedived. It was a really bad fall, and we couldn't save your lower body. But it's okay, we made it better. Wait, so you mean? No! But where did my body go? We sold it for scraps. Now nobody will suspect a thing. Oh crap. Hey Rangers, welcome to Super Important Views. My name's Steve, and today I'll be going over what might possibly be the greatest Godzilla collectible ever made. Because today we're going over the Godzilla 1974 Diamond Select Godzilla Bank. Is this the right figure I'm reviewing? Is this a 74? Are you sure? Okay, I guess today we're going over the 1974 Godzilla Bank. If you guys didn't already, this is supposed to replicate his appearance from the film Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, which came out in 1974, hence the name. Also, it's supposed to go along with the Mechagodzilla Bank that came out a little while ago, and we also did a review for. And decided to pick up this guy mainly because, one, wanted him to go with the other bank because I thought it'd be cool to have these guys squaring it off next to each other while also being able to store my money inside of it. And two, don't have a lot of the later Showa Godzillas in my collection, so I thought this would be a cool little addition to it. But we'll know a little bit more after we go over some of his finer details. So without further ado, for the packaging, you get this sweet little card that hangs off his arm, which is perfectly fine. He pretty much just came in a clear plastic bag, and then you get this little card like you do with some of the Bandai vinyls, which bringing him a little closer. You can see here we have Godzilla 1974 vinyl bag, got some warnings, absolutely nothing on the inside, which I think they could have done something there. Because of what? Why not just make it an actual card then and just have this on the back with the product information and the barcodes and whatnot, instead of having it open. Like, it could have been cool to maybe have like some pictures in here from the actual film, would have been really sweet. Because this just seems like a lot of waste of space. But otherwise, looks pretty cool overall. And now, let's get into the figure. Alright, so first we're going to start with a closer look at his details, which his head sculpt is just okay. Mainly for the head sculpt here, the front of the face actually looks very similar to the 1974 suit. Other than that, I would have liked to see maybe slightly smaller eyes, even though he did have actually pretty large eyes in the film. But on the figure, they're like comically large. Like, to me, from a front angle, he kind of reminds me of Daffy Duck in a way. And I would have liked to have seen a little bit more details here on the brow and a little bit more in the face region too. Would have helped to really make this figure stand out. But one thing that's actually really cool though too is for the details here, they actually detailed the inside of his mouth where you see his paint are actually painted this very nice bone color. And they even painted the gums in on the top in there. So he actually has a decent amount more details than I was expecting to see, at least on a bank anyways. So that's actually something that's really cool to see on this figure, because it helps to give him just a lot more character when looking at him from the front. But just looking at it from a lower angle, he just looks a little bit off to me. But when turning him to the side, he just loses a lot of those characteristics that just the 74 suit had to me. Especially like with the eyebrow region and the huge eyes and the more scrunched in face. It just doesn't really work very well in terms of the 74 suit. It just seems a wee bit off, especially since that Godzilla suit actually had a fairly elongated face, which they kind of replicated the mouth bit a little bit here, but maybe would have liked to seen it actually be a little bit longer. And again, like the details for like the eyebrows and the eyes would actually made this figure actually stand out a lot more, in my opinion. But looking at it from angles, it's very reminiscent of that suit, especially when looking at it from a more downward position. Like, that looks like the 74 suit. Like, this more, in terms of the face sculpt anyways, kind of reminds me more of the fake Godzilla, where he actually fought Anguirus at the beginning of the film, and then when they actually have the confrontation with Godzilla, he ends up revealing himself to be Mechagodzilla. And it just makes more sense to me for him being imposter Godzilla with the details being a little bit lacking, you know? Like, he's just got some mechanized structure on the inside of him. He's just ready to go attack his friends. Another thing, too, is at the top of his head, you should actually start seeing the dorsal spines here, but it doesn't start showing up till the back of his head right here where they started painting it. And I would like to see a little more details here, because right now it has that more like 80s greaser look where it's like they slick back his hair and he has that more what my friends like to call the douche appearance, which I think we're just going to call you Douchezilla from now on. That's your name, buddy. And another thing I'm not quite as big of a fan of for this figure is actually the positioning of him. Because see his upper body, he's in a more slouched position. Like he's getting ready to maybe go and tackle somebody or ready to give somebody some cuddles like, love me. And he just has a little bit more of a lazy look in my opinion. Like something I actually would have really liked to have seen, showing you guys how you get the money out real quick. And for the posture, I just really would have liked to seen it more in an upright positioning. Because especially if he's going to be standing next to Mechagodzilla in like the more confrontational stance, it would have been nice to actually have his head more upright than more looking down towards his like chest region or whatnot, like he's getting ready to go in for headbutts. And it just would have worked a little bit better for me in terms of displayability instead of it being more leaning forward. It's not horrible per se, but it's just a little nitpick for me. But for the rest of his details, the body actually looks fairly decent here with the details, especially for this being a bank, which I don't expect, just going over the details here, this to be like X plus quality for this figure. Like, it's okay that the details aren't quite as great. Like, I expected out of a $30 bank, you know? But the body details actually are pretty nice, especially in the more arm region here, where you can see his wrinkles right there. Same with it coming down his body here. And also for his paint job for his body too, it's in a more brownish gray color scheme, which works pretty well for the suit. And then you can see for the legs right here, you get more of his wrinkles. And his nails are actually painted in a dark gray tone. Same with the nails on his claws right here, which work pretty well for me in terms of the film. And for his dorsal spines, they're this metallic silver, which actually has a very nice pop to it. Like when you get a decent amount of lighting on it, it reflects off the dorsal spines very nicely. It really helps to gravitate your attention towards this figure, which is something that's really cool in terms of a collection piece. And then for the paint job, it's pretty hit and miss. Like the primary dorsal spines look actually really nice, but you can see like right here where the paint kind of wavers off right when it's getting closer to the body here. But at the top portion is where you can kind of see where the paint gets a little bit more choppy. It's nothing bad on the topper portion, but it's there and noticeable. The main problem I'm noticing though is at the tail region, the dorsal spines actually, the paint job is not very great. Like it's just kind of like they went over it with the brush and just kind of swapped over it real quick, called it a day. Because you can see there's a little bit of excess paint on certain ones, while ones like this one actually have very little paint, if at all. And it's almost missing the actual spine in general. You kind of notice it too, just going up the top portions, going up towards the tip of the tail. That just wasn't really kept to the normal quality standards going through the tail region as it was for the upper dorsal spines. And then for the tail too, it looks pretty good in general, where you get the wrinkles coming up the entirety of the tail. Maybe it would be nice to see a little less detail on the actual bottom portion here, because on this Godzilla, this portion would have actually been smooth. And maybe a little bit more detailing for the segmenting here, just to really give it that look that that suit had. And just to show you guys the posture a little bit better, one thing that looking at it from a distance though is actually the curves here actually look really nice on the figure here, where he has a lot of nice bends, which is where like the head leaning forward a little bit isn't quite as bad looking at it from a distance. I still would have really liked to have seen, popping it back off one more time, it in a more upright position, because it just would have looked a little bit better in my opinion. But it still works really well for the curvature of the figure here. And next we're going to go over his bank gimmick, which right here on his right shoulder, you just notice this slit right here, which is where you insert your money, where you want to be saving your cash inside of this kaiju here in order to buy more kaiju, which is actually pretty cool. Same thing I explained with the Mechagodzilla figures. I really like these actually for being more incognito banks. Like, I'm not going to say that this bank is super safe and going to secure your money better than a safe or anything. But if you got like a pesky little brother, or maybe you want to hide some of your money from the wife, then these figures actually work really well hiding your collection, because who's going to really check out the Godzilla figure if you got money in it, you know? Except maybe if you're my wife, because she would know. And then if you want to retrieve your money, all you do, just pop off the Godzilla head right here. I know it's terrifying, but you're going to have to do it. And on the inside here, you just be holding your money. Which actually, compared to the Mechagodzilla, he actually has a lot of room in there. Like, from what I can tell, he's actually pretty hollow on the inside. Just to kind of show you guys how much space you're going to have inside of him, you'll notice that there's a little bit of a hole towards the bottom there. But you pretty much get the majority of the Godzilla on the inside in order to actually have space for your change. So he's not going to hold a whole lot of money in there. And some of the smaller change, you're going to have to worry about it actually going into the tail region. But personally, he does seem like a pretty effective bank, And then the only other thing that's a little bit sad here, which you kind of actually popping this off real quick again. Right here, if you guys can see it, you notice that there's actually a connector piece for the arm here, where it actually would be usually what I would consider a joint for in terms of articulation. Because you can tell here that there's actually seam lines here where they actually attach the figure to the body. But sadly, this Godzilla has no articulation at all. So he's literally just be standing on your shelf, just sort of like how X pluses are and whatnot. Which isn't a bad thing, because it's not like I really want to play with banks anyways. But it might be cool to maybe have a little bit more articulation on this guy, just to kind of keep him up with the Mechagodzilla release. And for some quick comparison, and my biggest complaint for this entire figure, because the details, granted, would have liked to see a little bit more, but it's a bank. Totally understandable. I actually love this bank overall, even with the proportions being a little bit off, or actually a decent amount off, for the Mechagodzilla for the 74 here. Still actually like this bank a lot. Problem is the scale, which in 74, both these guys should have been the same size. Especially if I want this guy to actually be more reminiscent of the suit that Mechagodzilla was in the early portion of the film. It'd be nice if they were actually the same size, and they should be the same size being Godzilla and Mechagodzilla anyways. So having them stand next to each other on the shelf doesn't look that great in my opinion, because I really want these guys to be in the same height, and that's just definitely not going to happen. Like, I could put some books underneath them just to levitate them a little bit, but then it's just going to look silly. Not going to do that. So to be honest, in my collection anyways, I'm probably not going to keep these two guys standing next to each other, which is a little bit of a bummer. And here's next to some SH Monster Arts figures with the Heisei Godzilla and Burning Godzilla. And with him being more in scale with the X Plus action figures, here is with the X Plus 25cm Burning Godzilla and the Diamond reissued Godzilla 1962. And here's some other obscure Godzilla action figures with the 2014 Atomic Blast Godzilla. And what I would say is probably the best Trendmaster in my collection is the large electronic Mechagodzilla 2, which is actually, the main reason I love this guy is just because he's so freaking reminiscent of the actual Mechagodzilla 2, which is very scary and cool for these figures. And here's wearing a Godzilla mask. So overall with the Godzilla Diamond 74 bank, I think this thing's just okay. I really wish the head sculpt was definitely better and a little bit more reminiscent of the 74 than what we actually got, but having him standing with a lot of my other Godzilla action figures, he actually does give a decent amount of variety to what you're seeing here with the collection, which is something that I can appreciate. And also the fact that, in terms of what we were talking about before with him being an incognito bank, because looking at him with all these other figures, you wouldn't think that this guy's actually a bank, and people are generally probably going to leave him alone and keep your money relatively safe in terms of pesky little brothers and spouses. But the big question here is, would I recommend this figure to you guys? Which for $30, I definitely say that there's better banks to be picking up. Because if you want only one Godzilla monster bank, I would recommend either picking up the Mechagodzilla or waiting for the Jet Jaguar that's coming out, because that thing looks freaking boss. But if you guys want a Godzilla bank and want it to be Godzilla, then he is not a bad option. But what do you guys think? Do you guys own the Godzilla 74 vinyl bank toy? What's your favorite bank toy? Or do you just prefer more real action figures? Please let us know in the comments. A little closer picture of this guy on Facebook. If you want to click the link description below. Help us defeat those kaijus by hitting that like button. Subscribe to become a Ranger today, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.